तो सारियां की मेरी तरफों namaste. Today we are back again with our Itihaas ke Panney connecting to the roots, and our session today talks about the seeds of turmoil, the return of Sheikh Abdullah. Handing over to Sir Harbans Singh Sambyal.
Namaskar sabhi ko. We are back again, and it's always a pleasure to be in a dialogue such as this. Today we enter in a very interesting phase in the sense that it has a direct bearing on the present times. The events that happened post 1975, they are largely responsible for what happened after 1987. So it's very important to understand what was the background and how things developed during this period. I have already mentioned once that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was also not very comfortable with the idea of a person being incarcerated indefinitely without a proper trial. So a number of times he too had toyed with the idea of asking the state government to release Sheikh Abdullah. He had been released, but his activities had forced the state government to put him in prison once again. This time he was sent to Uttarakhand, South India, from where he was ultimately released on 2nd of January 1968. On 6th of January, the same month, Mrs. Indira Gandhi wrote a letter, presumably to all the important leaders, but the letter which I am referring to is addressed to Dr. Karan Singh. She mentioned about the various hopes for the new year, as well as some of the challenges which were ahead. And then in a passing, she referred to the fact that Sheikh Abdullah has recently been released and that it was important to release him so that he moves around, looks at the situation, and hopefully reassesses his own position and that of the people of Kashmir. Because during this period after 1953, so much had changed, so many developments, socio-economic developments, as well as political developments had taken place. The state had been considerably integrated with the rest of the country. A number of provisions of the Constitution of India, they had been applied to the state. And when he looks at all those things, he will hopefully reassess his position. In my opinion, at that point of time, by and large, the situation was in control. There were certain pockets where the opposite front floated by Mirza that was active. That's about all. And hopefully Indira Gandhi felt that he'll be able to see all that. On 6th of January, the same day when Indira Gandhi wrote to Karan Singh replied, and he mentioned that the same morning, on 6th of morning, the day he received the letter, Sheikh Abdullah had called upon him. And Dr. Karan Singh and Sheikh Abdullah had had a 90-minute meeting. And after the pleasantries, they had discussed the situation of the state. Sheikh Abdullah asked Karan Singh what was his assessment. He said that obviously he knew that the situation was not entirely satisfactory, But certain facts should not be lost to anyone. The major factor was that during these years, the state had integrated considerably with the rest of the country. And the rest of the country had understood that it is an integral part of our main body. And if anybody thinks that this thing can be changed or altered in any way, he was mistaken, because now the people of the country, they too need to be convinced of any change. So in order to take any new step, the people of this country, the parliament of this country, all those institutions involved in it, they have to be taken into confidence and explain that why this step has to be taken. He asked him that what is the situation. He said the main problem is, and which I insist again and again, the problem of Jammu and Kashmir, in my opinion, is not a problem between India and Pakistan as much as it is between Kashmir and Jammu. I can argue this case for hours on end, that the root cause of the problem was the clash between the conflict of interest between Kashmir and Jammu. So Karan Singh also mentioned that this is a problem. So during the conversation, Karan Singh realized that even after so many years, he was convinced that Jammu region, if it needs to be given something, a separate authority, then it consisted only of Jammu, Kathua, and part of Udhampur. He did not in any way consider Doda, Kishtwar as part of Jammu region. Now this is something which has stuck with him since the 50s. Ever since Mirza Afzal Beg reorganized the district of Udhampur and carved out Doda as a separate district, this has been the game plan of carving out the Muslim areas as a separate region and then propagating that this district is part of the Kashmir region across the Pir Panjal. So this is what he was thinking, and Karan Singh apprised Indira Gandhi that this is what we discussed. But as far as Karan Singh is concerned, he realized that what kind of a mindset, even during the incarceration, Sheikh Abdullah had developed. In fact, it appeared that his stand had hardened. So this was 1968. From 1968 to 71, Sheikh Abdullah was allowed to go wherever he wanted to go, to meet people, to see the situation, the ground reality. And before he could formulate a policy or a roadmap for himself, the problem of East Pakistan, that is Bangladesh, that started troubling, and India got sucked into it because of the refugee problem. The whole of the year 71, Indira Gandhi was occupied with East Pakistan. The end result was that Pakistan was resoundingly defeated, humiliated, and 90,000 of its prisoners were taken by India. Habibullah, the bureaucrat who has written a very fine book, My Kashmir, in it he writes that the fact that Pakistan had been defeated so humiliatingly had shocked Kashmiris. They could not believe that this could happen with Pakistan. They had been made to believe that Muslim soldiers, one Muslim soldier is equal to 6 Hindu soldiers. So that myth had been thoroughly exposed. And gradually, the news also started coming the kind of genocide that had taken place in Bangladesh. At least two incidents, they stand out and they are still a sore point between relations between Bangladesh and Pakistan. Simultaneously, on a single night, the Pakistani army had launched an attack on the intellectuals and university students in Dhaka and Khulna. And not only the Hindu students and professors and other intellectuals and writers were killed, but also the Muslim intellectuals who believed that Bengali is the language of East Pakistan. They too were eliminated. Now, this thing sent a very strong message to Kashmiris also, that Pakistan doesn't care for regional aspirations, for regional sentiments. So this was an appropriate time to make a move regarding Kashmir with Kashmiris and its leaders. But in between, as is the case with Kashmir now and then, a very apparently unrelated incident took place. In the college library of Government College, Anantnag, a book was found. Book of Knowledge, Children's Encyclopedia. Published in 1911. Mind you, the date of the publication, 1911. And in 1912, the book had been brought by some missionary to the valley. Now, how that book reached the Government College Library in Anantnag is not known. But what is known is that someone discovered that book. Alastair Lamb, a historian, writes that it is a very bland book. Nothing of importance is there, not even very well written. But there was one image in the book of Archangel Gabriel dictating to Prophet Muhammad. Now this aroused the Muslims, and the miscreants, they went on a writing spree. For a number of days, the valley was on fire, and Pakistani Prime Minister Bhutto, who had already signed the Shimla Agreement, and it was believed that with the signing of the Shimla Agreement, Pakistan will stay out of the valley. He gave a statement condemning the firing on those demonstrators and raising the issue that such things will go on happening in the valley unless a plebiscite takes place. Mirwais Farooq, the father of the present Mirwais, he supported what Bhutto had said. And then out of a blue, Sheikh Abdullah also gave a statement. And he warned both of them, Bhutto as well as Mirwais Farooq, of the serious consequences of interfering in these affairs of Kashmir and raking up this issue of plebiscite. The government of India believed that his statement was a signal to it that he was ready for some kind of negotiations and settlement of the issue. That is why he had opposed plebiscite, the call for plebiscite. My opinion is that he opposed the plebiscite because he was a person who had delayed and stalled the process of plebiscite because he believed that his ego was such that since he had sided with India in 1947, therefore there was no need of any plebiscite. He had said that Kashmir was part of India. So he was trying to save his own legacy. But the government of India believed that he was sending some message, and it's possible that he might have been also sending simultaneously. This would have meant a message to the government of India for negotiating some kind of a deal. So the next 2 years were spent in these negotiations. The negotiations were between Gopalaswamy Parthasarathi, not the present Parthasarathi, but an earlier one, and Mirza Afzal Beg. Parthasarathi on behalf of Indira Gandhi and Mirza Afzal Beg on behalf of Sheikh Abdullah. For 2 years, these negotiations continued. And ultimately, an accord was reached. My internet is unstable. An accord was ultimately reached. But in between, Karan Singh came to know, many people knew that these negotiations were taking place. Karan Singh was at that point of time a senior member of Indira Gandhi's cabinet. He warned also that negotiations should be conducted very carefully, looking at the ground reality, so that those Kashmiris who had sided with India from 1953 onwards, and particularly those Kashmiris who after 1964, when National Conference was dissolved and the Sadiq government as well as the party which he was leading, they became Indian National Congress, that those people who had done that, who had taken that risk, should not feel let down, because they were the ones who would be opposing secessionist elements, and if they are demoralized, it would be very difficult for India. Anyway, his opinion, it's not known whether was taken seriously by Indira Gandhi or not, but he did write that letter. And in 1975, Indira Gandhi announced that this accord had taken place. According to this accord, the state was to continue to be governed by Article 370. The residual powers between state and center, they would continue to be with the state government, with the state of Jammu and Kashmir. However, the government of India, the Union, had the power to make laws in order to curb any effort to challenge the sovereignty of India or any anti-national activity or any effort to insult the national flag, anthem, or the Constitution of India. Apart from that, other powers could be exercised by the state government. Another demand which was very important for National Conference was to revert to the old nomenclature of the head of the state and the chief executive of the state, which in 1964 had been changed from Sadr-e-Riyasat to governor and from prime minister to chief minister. However, no decision could be reached on this. Experts who analyzed this accord, they felt that India hadn't lost anything by entering into this accord. The basic position of the country remained the same. By this period of accord, in fact, in the mid-1970s, 23 constitutional orders had already been made in order to integrate the state with the union. 262 union laws had been applied to the state. The only concession which the government of India gave to Sheikh Abdullah was that it was granted that the state government has the right to review the laws that were on the concurrent list. In other words, those laws which were clearly defined by the Indian Constitution that they were in the domain of the union government, if they were applied to the state, they could not be altered. But those laws which were on the concurrent list on which laws could be drafted either by the union government or by the state government, if any alteration had been done to those laws, they could be reviewed. And after review, if need be, they could be withdrawn. The state was given the right to legislate without any hindrance or interference from the union in matters of welfare, social, cultural, and Muslim personal law. So these were the concessions which the government of India gave. Now, remember that I also believe that the Kashmiri leaders, the plebiscite front, Sheikh Abdullah, Mirza Afzal Beg, they did not get much of a concession from the union government. It also needs to be remembered that this is 1975. By 1975, a whole new generation has grown up, has attained adulthood, and is able to see things from a different perspective, good or bad. They are not under the influence of Sheikh Abdullah as the youth was in 1931 when Sheikh Abdullah emerged as a leader. In 1931, there were only a handful of graduates among the Kashmiri Muslims. So those who were educated, they were natural born leaders also. So they commanded a great deal of loyalty across the board. But this was 1975. A large number of Kashmiri population was educated, had different aspirations, both regarding their careers as well as their political aspirations. They felt that Sheikh Abdullah had betrayed them because he had not been able to abstract anything significant. Because not only had he failed in reverting back to the 1953 position, but he had also conceded considerable ground regarding legislation. So we'll come to this aspect of Sheikh Abdullah's legacy and what happened to it, probably in the next lecture. But suffice it to say that many young people in the valley were not happy with the accord, and they felt that it was a sellout. Obviously, the followers of Mirbaz, they agitated, they were unhappy. Ladakh too was unhappy. Ladakh was unhappy because it was unhappy at the very thought of Sheikh Abdullah returning back. For Sheikh Abdullah, Ladakh never existed. So they were obviously not very happy. In Jammu, the Jansangh, it was still Jansangh and not Bharatiya Janata Party. As usual, their single point demand was that abrogate the Article 370. And there was strike and little bit of agitation for a few days. But the valley, by and large, they accepted it. They accepted it because the changes had already been part of their life. Now, it depends upon the leader how you project those changes and how those changes have impacted the life of the common people. So, life of the common people had definitely improved. The connectivity with the rest of the country, the exchanges and the educational programs, they had done a lot. But a segment, of course, was there. Now, there is no Pakistani element in this at this point. Pakistani element, I believe, is not a major player. It becomes a major player only when we allow it to become a major player. When we create conditions conducive to the activities of Pakistani agents. This situation was not. So it couldn't make any headway. Pakistan couldn't make any headway in it. Congress was not very happy. Karan Singh, Indira Gandhi announced this on 24th January, I believe. 2 days before she made that was later. But in January 1975, Karan Singh wrote a letter to Indira Gandhi, and he expressed a little bit of concern that he has heard that this development is going on, but he has not received as yet the draft resolution of the accord. But he warned about a few things. He said that this is a Kashmir-Jammu problem, and steps need to be ensured, safeguards need to be there, checks and balances need to be there. For checks and balances, he said that since Congress party is present in the assembly, has a majority, and with the support of the Congress party, Sheikh Abdullah will become the chief minister. Therefore, one of the recommendations of Gajendra Gadkar Commission, that if a chief minister is from one region, then there should be a deputy chief minister from another region. That is, if Sheikh Abdullah, a Kashmiri, is a chief minister, then there should be a deputy chief minister from Jammu. Apart from that, he said that he suggests that at least one cabinet minister should be taken from the valley who belongs to the Congress party. And that Ladakh too should be given representation in the new government. He made certain recommendations that either Ladakh should be given a tribal status and regional development councils. In 75, he recommended regional development councils for Ladakh, and it was only in 1996 that the Council for was established. But this was not done. He had hoped that Congress workers would not be demoralized if there is a deputy chief minister, obviously from Congress party from Jammu, and a cabinet minister from Valley who belongs to the Congress party, and then adequate representation from Jammu, Ladakh, Kashmir to everyone. This unfortunately did not happen. And the tragedy is that soon after Sheikh Abdullah became the chief minister, it was found that the leopard had not changed its stripes. He immediately went back to the 1953 situation, making unreasonable demands, adopting the same tactic which he had been adopting with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru with great success. But he forgot that Indira Gandhi was not Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, neither in her philosophy nor her in style of working. She could not be bullied, she could not be pestered. Once she had taken a decision, that decision had been taken. And she would push through that decision. Now, this is 1975. The autocratic streak in Indira Gandhi was already there. These are signs of autocracy. And they were there then. In fact, they were very strong since 1974 when the railway strike took place in the country, and 20 lakh workers, they went on strike. She had crushed that strike. Now, this thing with this development, Sheikh Abdullah, he made a statement, first of all, that there should be a federation between Pakistan and India. Now, this was beyond anything that had been discussed during the accord. So obviously, he was given a snub. Then he declared that national conference will be revived. And he wanted the Congress to merge, the state unit of the Congress, to merge itself with first the plebiscite front, and then both the Congress and the plebiscite front, they merged with the national conference. Now, this too would be unacceptable, but it was a dangerous omen, a bad omen for the valley and the country. And it's very difficult to imagine that what kind of a mind Sheikh Abdullah had, that he, so soon after the accord, he had been thinking in such a manner, destroying the accord, destroying the amity that had developed recently. He, in the cabinet that he was sworn in with, contained of Devidas Thakur from Jammu, Mirza Afzal Beg from the valley, and Sonam Darbu from Ladakh. Now, obviously, the person who was picked from the Jammu region was a lightweight. He had no mass pace. He was not a ground leader. So nothing could be expected of him to be vocal about the Jammu aspirations. Same was the case with Ladakh. He too was powerless and having no grassroots. The people who wielded power was Sheikh Abdullah and Mirza Afzal Beg, who, for all intents and purposes, always worked against the integration with India. Now, Congress had no choice now. They couldn't turn back. Too far gone into the commitment. The result was that gradually both the parties, they developed open differences. Emergency was in the meantime imposed in the country. And finally, in 1977, Indira Gandhi lifted the emergency, general elections were held, and the Congress party drubbed. Even Indira Gandhi lost her election. And things started changing after that very fast. Janata Party came into power. Morarji Desai was the Prime Minister. Now this gave a new perspective to National Conference and Sheikh Abdullah. That this is India. It is not just Congress. The Congress can be defeated. A new government can come. A new government with a different philosophy. So it was very important that any regional party should also develop links and relations with other national political parties. So National Conference came closer to the Janata Party. They had that exposure for the first time. Unfortunately, this government did not last, the Janata government. And by January 1980, Indira Gandhi was back. In 1977, the moment Indira Gandhi had lost and Janata Party came into power, the Congress unit, when it saw the close relations developing between National Conference and the Janata Party, they decided to withdraw support to Sheikh Abdullah. Sheikh Abdullah had no members in the assembly or council except for these people who were in the cabinet. Rest of the support came from the Congress party. Congress party approached the governor L.K. Jha that it had withdrawn the support and proposed the name of Mufti Muhammad Sayyid as their new leader of the legislature, and therefore he should be sworn in as the chief minister. Retaliating, Sheikh Abdullah in the cabinet passed a resolution and sent it to the governor that the assembly be dissolved and new elections be held to the assembly. Now, the governor, to all intents and purposes, should have accepted the recommendation of the majority party or asked Sheikh Abdullah to seek a vote of confidence. But he did neither. He accepted the recommendation made by the government, by Sheikh Abdullah, and he dissolved the house, called for new elections. In the new elections, National Conference was back with a bang and got a good thumping majority and formed the new government. It is after this that the relations between Congress and National Conference, they deteriorated. In 1980, when Indira Gandhi came back, by then, things had deteriorated a lot. Secessionist activities had already begun to take place in the valley. Karan Singh kept informing Indira Gandhi what was happening. He informed her that Sheikh Abdullah no sooner had he come to power, he had amongst his other agendas the agenda to destroy the old landmarks. And his aversion to the old landmarks, the history, and the desire to distort and change history was so strong that even a Jahangir era structure that was in the Nishad Bagh, that too was demolished. He argued that it did not go well with the aesthetics of the whole garden. But I believe that he did that because he wanted to obliterate the Mughal legacy also. Because remember, Kashmiri historians, the staunch historians, fanatics, they are of the opinion that the slavery of the Kashmiris began with the conquest of the valley by Emperor Akbar. Thus, even the Mughals, they are considered outsiders. Dogras, of course, they were outsiders and they were the enemy number one. But to obliterate the legacy of the past and particularly of Dogras in Jammu, all old buildings, they were either allowed to fall apart or many of them demolished on the pretext of widening the roads. So a number of buildings around Mubarak Mandi, they were thus lost. Not only this, in 1980, Rajgarh Palace in Srinagar, it's a historical landmark and it had excellent, of highest quality paper mache work. That too was allowed, that was destroyed by a fire. So it was attributed to an accidental fire, but Karan Singh claims that he went there and inquired, and it was revealed that the Rajgarh Palace was put on fire on the orders of Sheikh Abdullah, who had instructed one of his ministers, who had picked up two men who had done that work. And both these men, later on, they became members of the assembly as a reward for destroying that palace. In Jammu, of course, we know, thanks to so many organizations now in Jammu who are demanding that the restoration work for all old buildings should be hastened up and none of them should be allowed to just fall apart. That began during Sheikh Abdullah's this tenure. A deliberate attempt to obliterate Dogra legacy. So this thing was developing, and Karan Singh warned that Kashmiri Pandits are feeling insecure. This is 1980. In 1980, he wrote to Indira Gandhi that Kashmiri Pandits are feeling insecure and something needs to be done. Then gradually things began to move at a faster pace. In 1981, 13th July, as you know, till the other day, 13th July was celebrated as the Martyrs' Day by Kashmiris. During that celebration, Sheikh Abdullah again launched a very aggressive attack on the Dogra rule. It was uncalled for. Decades had passed since the Dogra rule had gone, raking up all those things which he had been raked up in 1931. was a blatant attempt to arouse the Kashmiri sentiments against Jammu. And now, since Jammu was being defended by the center, therefore, actually his target was the government of India, the center, the union government. This too was brought to the notice of Indira Gandhi. In the same year, in September or August, late August, I think 22nd or 23rd, there was annual convention of the National Conference. In that convention, Sheikh Abdullah again raked up all these issues. The slavery of the Kashmiris, the atrocities of the Dogras, and he exhorted the Kashmiri people to remain united for a fight against those forces who wish to destroy the Kashmiri independence. 3 days later, during this convention, Sheikh Abdullah was getting old, ill. Farooq Abdullah was chosen as the next successor, as the president of the party also. So the valedictory address was given by Farooq Abdullah. In that also, he exhorted the Kashmiris to unite, be prepared to make extreme sacrifices so as to defend the Kashmiri identity, the Kashmiri independence. Now, these were all pointing towards very dark clouds. The dark clouds had already started gathering. This is 1991, and next year, Sheikh Abdullah passed away. And Farooq Abdullah became the chief minister of the state the very same day. Today, I'll be stopping at this point because then the new phase begins. But this is the background to the developments which will take place from 1982 onwards. And it is my firm belief that it is because of these events that the events of 1987 and onwards, they happened. This situation was now conducive for Pakistan also. Pakistan, after 1971, it should have been very clear that by force it cannot conquer Kashmir. So it had decided a different kind of a strategy. Its agents have started working everywhere. It's very difficult to accuse Sheikh Abdullah or Farooq Abdullah of having links with Pakistan. But I think it's very easy to say that it is because of their misconceived actions that the situation became conducive for Pakistan to interfere in our affairs, to send in a large number of agents in the valley to instigate. And there were other developments too. A major development was in 1979. That's an international development. And how those events took place in 1979, which greatly impacted the valley in particular and the world in general. We'll deal with that the next time. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Harbans Singh ji. It was a very important period, a very important era of our state, Jammu and Kashmir, which we discussed today, which we are still facing today in 2020. Going back to that time, all the things which erupted, we are still dealing with it, hopefully not for long. Now, as Sir said, he's open for any questions. If anybody would like to ask any question, please go ahead.
Yeah, Lalit.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Sir, as I told you the last time also, that most of the knowledge is what I've been talking to people around in Jammu. So what used to happen in my house, I left for NDA in 1978. And till 82, I was not in Jammu at all. And NDA, I should be saying it, but for ease of understanding, it was a jail. So I had not much of a clue with the outside world, what was happening back in jail. So when I would talk to my dad, he retired as the chief engineer of electricity department. And that time I used to wonder, but now I feel he was a hardcore Jansangi, or maybe I've been BJP today, later on, of course, that he didn't tell me. So he told me in 1984, he says, Beta, Kashmir is gone. Now the events which you said after 82, Farooq took over. Now I can tell you certain tales which I heard about Farooq in Jaipur. Because Jaipur, a lot of guys who was a classmate, he took 13 years to do his MBBS. So he was here for that long period. And a lot of people in Jaipur know him very well, with whom I am in touch. So this gentleman, while this convention you talked about of national conference in 1981, somebody tells me in Jammu that people expected Sheikh to come and give that valedictory address, as you already correctly pointed out. So when Farooq came, his words were, वो जमाना खत्म हो गया जब हमारे पे हिंदुस्तान की हुकूमत चलाया करती थी. अब हमको ऑर्डर लेने के लिए हिंदुस्तान नहीं जाना पड़ेगा. So everybody was shocked. This happened in Jammu in the stadium where this convention took place. So with that sort of a link in mind, people in Jammu tell me when in 1984, I think the first time it was that watch factory chairman was killed, Taplu. Tikala Taplu, then was somebody who was heading the Doordarshan, and then third gentleman was that GMT or whatever that watch factory is there in Srinagar. It eventually closed down because of that. So they said the seeds of terrorism had started. And talking about the links with J&K, my knowledge very clearly says 1964, before Nehru died, Sheikh Abdullah, along with his father, was in Kashmir. And unfortunately, by the time they could come back after negotiation, Nehru had expired. Now, there are a lot of books I've read, at least 3 of those I can quote you. They say that probably some agreement had already been arrived at, and which, if they would have brought the thing back to Jammu, India, would have been signed also. So my way of thinking at the moment is that Pakistanis and Sheikh's family were always in touch. Whichever way, maybe levels might differ. Because Pakistan, the basic tactics, even in 1965, they sent Razakar. 47, of course, they sent. 65 also, they thought they'll go for Operation Grand Slam, and everybody will rise up against India, and Kashmir will be ours. And thereafter, whenever there was any kind of a sort of a meet coming, this kind of a thing would come up. Getting married marriages between the people and all, those contacts were there. And once this started, probably I think you'll be covering in the next lecture, your Zia-ul Haq took the full advantage of it with Operation Topaz. So my view is that probably links were there, and Pakistanis were studying it. And Zia-ul Haq, when he took over as a president, and he was a staunch Islamist, and he wanted to put Islamic, he started off Topaz. He knew we cannot defeat India by conventional forces. And those days, nuclear scenario wasn't there. And India was already a nuclear power in 73. So they said, okay, now what to do? So they went for the philosophy of 1,000 cuts to bleed India. And that's how it started. So that is my bit of a jointer on what you. Thank you.
I'm sorry to say, Brigadier, but this is not the case. this family never had links with Pakistan. Both of them, the father and the son, they were very proud people who would not bargain for their own independence. Getting help from Pakistan or any kind of relationship with Pakistan, both of them were aware that their own identity would be gobbled up. In 1964, yes, the fact is that Nehru wanted the issue to be settled in his lifetime. And he knew that Sheikh Abdullah was the most popular leader. If anybody could carry any kind of accord, it was Sheikh Abdullah. And that was the time when an accord could have been reached. The kind of accord which was reached in 1975, that is so many years after 64, almost half a decade, more than that. In that period, the young boys have grown up into adults. Those adults had not seen Sheikh Abdullah. And that is why they were not impressed by him. So a parallel kind of movement, a parallel kind of thought process was taking place. Sheikh Abdullah, when he went to Pakistan in 64, he went to Azad Kashmir. He was in Muzaffarabad, in fact, during a rally when he was informed that Nehru had passed away. And he immediately rushed back. But he had seen the fate of the Kashmiris in Pak-occupied Kashmir and knew which side of the bread was buttered for him. Same is the case with Farooq. Now, what about Yasin Malik? Yasin Malik went to Pakistan, to POK with so much of fanfare and returned back entirely disillusioned. Their movement was for liberation of Jammu and Kashmir. They wanted Jammu and Kashmir as a separate unit. Now, who had given this dream? This dream had been given by Sheikh Abdullah. Sheikh Abdullah had given them the dream that J&K is a separate entity. It is different from India, as well as Pakistan. Being different from India does not mean that it is closer to Pakistan. He would have liked it to have an equidistance between the two. But if that was not possible, then his preference was to be a part of India, but with considerable autonomy in internal affairs. So I'll be dealing with that and how the terrorism came about. And that is why I mentioned just briefly in a casual way, the year 1979. We do not know the significance and importance of 1979 to Kashmir as well as the rest of the world. I'll deal with that during the next session.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? I think we have somebody who was, I think, about to ask the question.
No, Lalit, I just want to make a comment, if you
Sure.
allow me 1 minute, not to, but as an outsider, I would like to thank Harbans Singh Ji, or Mr. Harbans Singh Ji, for his once again very important contribution to the history of Jammu and Kashmir. I know that two scholars are now putting the different point of views, but both have the balance. But I think it's important for people like me to understand the background, where we have reached and from where we have come. And it will be interesting to hear Harbans Singh Ji in his next lecture, and certainly tomorrow as well, at the different perspective to listen it. But the most important is that we need to look at how best we can resolve the issue. I think that those academic debates and discussions should also come. What should be happening now? I'm a little bit taking away from the Jammu and Kashmir. At present, the situation in India as a whole is people like me sitting outside India are quite concerned about. And the way the ideas and the psyche developing, whether it is for vested interest or a genuine interest, that's where the people of India need to decide that where these arguments coming. But we are very concerned. We were very worried about Jammu and Kashmir, Kashmiri Pandits, and all that issues. Now we are looking at what is happening outside Delhi from the rest of the country. So I hope that eventually, I don't want the answer, but eventually, I think both the learned scholars will give us some idea how to resolve those issues where separatism, division amongst on the religious basis, we as India, we can overcome, which we people sitting outside can benefit from. Otherwise, we are divided, confused, not knowing what to do, what to say, what not to say. Especially for me, it's very difficult that as a member of parliament to comment on the internal matters of India, but we need to form our views with the help of the learned scholars like Harbans Singh and Dogra. That's my just comments on the whole situation, that I would like to see or hear the benefit of their intelligence so that I can form my own views for the future. That's thank you very much. Thank you, Lalit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for attending and for your comments. Harbans sir has to say something.
Lalit, just a brief comment. Thank you very much, Sharmaji, for your very humane and what should I say, a liberal point of view of the situation here. You're right, we are at crossroads. We have been for quite some time. And if we look at the world history where such developments take place, we know that they take 10 to 15 years to change. So in the near future also, we are likely to continue to live with it. But hopefully, as they say, there would be light at the end of the tunnel. The country will find solutions. Pakistan will very soon be dealing with its own problems, much more serious problems. And simply because of the economic power that we are developing in our country, that will make the skeptics also to see India in a favorable light. And the local people also. I'll deal with this issue, that the whole issue of how the terrorism began. I will look at it in a fresh way. I will look at it from a democratic angle. That has our democracy failed us? Did we implement it in a faulty manner? And the lessons which can draw from this, if we did that. This, in fact, that would be the thirst of my lecture next time. Thank you. I hope it will. Yes, please.
No, I'm just saluting you for that. Thank you very much. I look forward to joining you in your future lectures as well, where I have attended the past ones, and I'm sure I will continue joining you to listen to you, and certainly which help me. I'm a selfish on this point, which helps me to form my views with the information gathered from your intelligence, so that I don't make a fool of myself in the public eye or in my sector where I have to move. So I look forward to all the lectures Lalit, you and others have organized so that we can benefit from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Brigadier Vijay Sagar, I think.
Lalit, just 2 minutes I'll take.
Sure.
Mr. Sharma, I mean, we are really heartened and gladdened by your comments that you're sitting away from the country, yet you're bothering for us. As Mr. Sambyal has already told you, that we are at crossroads. But I just want to tell you, like if you go back into the history of England, there's a guy called Thomas Hobbes. There's a very famous theory of Hobbes' theory, which was prevalent during Civil War in England. So I would only like to request you that India is a true democracy. Something goes wrong, maybe it is our evolution. Like Britain has evolved from Thomas Hobbes' theory of Leviathan, which probably was a thing at that particular time. And over a period of time, they took some hundreds of years to come out of it. And similar, we talk about the United States democracy, and they also have evolved in 350 years. We are only 70. So we will come out of it. We are too strong to be renegated by countries like Pakistan and anybody else, or even China for that matter. We have that inherent strength, and we will come out of it. And yes, we will keep you informed about the events. And of course, my invitation for tomorrow stands. And all of you, please join me. And your friends, in case you have some around, you can share the links because I have Facebook links on for about more than 5,000 clientele that I have on social media. But this Zoom link is only for selected few, which you all are my special guests. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I look forward to hearing you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining this insightful session and all the intellectuals for making it so special with your discussions. We look forward to seeing you all in our future sessions with more history of Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Lalitji.
Bye.
Bye, Sambyal Sahab.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.